Welcome back, readers and writers. Let's talk about how to write action in books. To me, action in books is everything. I read for the action. Action is what gets my heart pumping, puts me on the edge of my seat, and really gets me invested and allows me to dive into the story. It's what makes me feel like I'm a part of the story. Action is what makes the pages fly and turns 100 pages into 10. Now, how does it do this? I believe it comes down to a few things: description, energy, and stakes. Let's talk about description first. Description is everything with good action writing. We need to physically feel the blows. We need to see the blood splattering, the bones crunching, and we need to feel the pain of it all. The more vivid the description, the realer the action will feel. The best action writers are masters of description. They truly bring you into the moment and make you feel as if you were there. And that is the goal of it all, to make the reader feel as if they are fighting alongside the characters they are reading about. Now, this does not mean you need to get bogged down in detail. You don't need to describe every little detail in a scene. Only the most important pieces that really bring the reader into the heart of the action. I think the best action writing has the most clarity. Be descriptive, but be clear in your writing. How can we fully see and feel the scene with the most clarity? Clarity is key. Try and keep things concise, to the point, and no pun intended, punchy. You want every word to count, you want the details to matter, and you really want to make the reader feel as if they can see everything that is happening very clearly. Another thing to keep in mind is some of the best action writers focus on the details in between the punches. And Joe Abercrombie is an author that does a really good job at this. In his writing, fighting is messy, chaotic, and troublesome, and it's never perfect. And if you want to write the same way, then you need to reflect that. Show your character messing up, stumbling, missing a punch, falling over, or getting hurt. We want to see that your character isn't always perfect. Next, let's talk about energy. Energy is very important in action writing. When you write enough action, you start to realize that there's actually a rhythm to it. The sentences themselves need to match the flow of the action. If you're writing a scene where two characters are engaging in a brutal fistfight, make your writing match that. Make the pacing lightning quick. We're trying to make them feel like they're there, right? So bring them in with fast writing. And then when your character is beaten down and out of breath, come off of it a little bit. Slow it down, take a moment to recover, and elongate the sentences. Add a few more details about what is happening, then pick it back up again. Start moving quicker and get into that rhythm again. You're trying to get them to sit forward and become engaged. You are literally giving them energy. And to me, a good rule of thumb that I always like to think about is that if you're not on the edge of your seat writing it, they're not going to be on the edge of their seat reading it. First and foremost, you need to be excited for your own writing and put that energy into your words. Your writing should be quick, fast-paced, and snappy, and if it's not going to feel energized. Finally, stakes. What is the point of this action scene? What do the characters have to lose, and why do we care about it? To me, the action is only as important as the stakes. We should feel as if there's something on the line and that there's something to be lost depending on the outcome of the fight. If we don't care about the stakes for the characters, then we don't care about the action. Try and heighten the stakes and your readers will automatically be more invested in the action. And as a bonus, don't forget about the environment that they are fighting in. Throw characters through walls, smash them into the ground, grab a tree limb or a rock and smash it into their head. A lot of new writers and writers who are scared of writing action scenes often forget about the world that is happening around the action. Have them move around, climb onto and jump off objects, and have them be chased through dynamic environments. Create dimensions to your action, and your action will be that much better. So I was actually in the middle of recording another video while I had this thought, and I knew I had to share it with you guys. So just remember that when you're writing fight scenes, the flow of time does not have to be consistent like it does in movies or television. You can pause, freeze time, describe things, explain things, look at things, point something out on the other end of the battlefield, and no one really knows the exact time that it's happening. So just keep that in mind, that you don't have to be consistent with that timing. You can actually freeze time, take all the time you want to describe, and just spend as much time as you want on really anything. So just keep that in mind. The flow of time in fight scenes does not have to be consistent. You can really spend as much time as you want looking at anything. It's a really cool thing that we get to do when writing novels, and it's one of my favorite things to do. do in the middle of battles. Hope that helps. Back to the video. Finally, let's look at a few examples from some of my favorite books. First, let's start with The Gunslinger from the Dark Tower series. I'll be reading from page 205 if you want to follow along. And let me go ahead and give you guys a recap of what happened in this book. We have Roland and Jake, and they are in some sort of cave on one of these like push cars. And there are these creatures called slow mutants that are hiding in the shadows. I think they're kind of like zombies. And they're kind of stalking them as they're going along the tracks. And this is the moment where the slow mutants finally attack them. So, the boy made a noise in his throat, and the gunslinger turned his head almost casually. 4 of them were charging the handcar in a stumbling way, one of them in the process of finding a hand grip. The gunslinger let go of the handle and drew again, with the same sleepy, casual motion. He shot the lead mutant in the head. The mutant made a sighing, sobbing noise and began to grin. Its hands were limp and fish-like, dead. The fingers clove to one another like the fingers of a glove long immersed in drying mud. One of these corpse hands found the boy's foot and began to pull. The boy shrieked aloud in the granite womb. The gunslinger shot the mutant in the chest. It began to slobber through the grin. Jake was going off the side. The gunslinger caught one of his arms and was almost pulled off balance himself. The thing was surprisingly strong. The gunslinger put another bullet in the mutant's head. One eye went out like a candle. Still, it pulled. They engaged in a silent tug of war for Jake's jerking, wriggling body. The slow mutants yanked on him like a wishbone. The wish would undoubtedly be to dine. The handcar was slowing down. The others began to close in. The lame, the halt, the blind. Perhaps they only looked for a Jesus to heal them, to raise them Lazarus-like from the darkness. It's the end for the boy, the gunslinger thought with perfect coldness. This is the end he meant. Let go and pump, or hold on and be buried. The end for the boy. He gave a tremendous yank on the boy's arm and shot the mutant in the belly. For one frozen moment, its grip grew even tighter, and Jake began to slide off the edge again. Then, the dead mutt mitts loosened, and the slow mutie fell on its face behind the slowing handcar, still grinning. So what just happened there? The slow mutants grabbed onto the boy, and quickly, Roland had to shoot them, take them out, do whatever he could to save the boy and not be pulled off with him into the darkness. He had a choice to make, to leave the boy and continue on, or to fight and save him. The stakes were clear, the energy was there, we knew what was going on, it was all clear, it was all descriptive. And another thing I really want to point out too, is he doesn't describe every single thing that's happening. Yes, his gun shoots, yes, he takes one out, but you're not literally seeing the bullets flying out of the barrel or him pulling the trigger. You know, he'll just say he shot the mutie and he fell. That's enough. You don't need to overthink it sometimes. Yes, I said to use a lot of description, but in reality, sometimes less is more, especially in circumstances like this where you're trying to keep the energy high. King loves to use short, quick lines like that where he shoots and the body drops, and that's that. Next, let's look at the blade itself in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. And we're going to take a look at a scene following Logan Ninefingers as he is being attacked. We're going to be reading from page 52. Key's horse startled at the flames and reared up, snorting. The skinny man stumbled back with a gasp, and Logan leaped at him, grabbed the shaft of the spear with one hand and butted him in the face. His nose crunched against Logan's forehead, and he staggered away with blood streaming down his chin. Logan jerked him back with the spear, swung his right arm around in a wide arc, and punched him in the neck. He went down with a gurgle, and Logan tore the spear from his hands. He felt movement behind him and dropped to the ground, rolling to his left. The axe whistled through the air above his head and cut a long slash in the horse's side, splattering drops of blood across the ground and ripping the buckle of the saddle girth open. Boyle-face tottered away, spinning around after his axe. Logan sprang at him, but his ankle twisted on a stone and he tottered like a drunken, yelping at the pain. An arrow hummed past his face from somewhere in the trees behind and was lost in the bushes on the other side of the road. The horse snorted and kicked, eyes rolling madly, then took off down the road at a crazy gallop. Malachus Key wailed as the saddle slid off its back and he was flung into the bushes. There was no time to think about it. Logan charged at the axeman with a roar, aiming the spear at his heart. He brought his axe up in time to nudge the point away, but not far enough. The spear spitted him through the shoulder, spun him around. There was a large crack as the shaft snapped. Logan lost his balance and pitched forward, bearing Boyle-face down into the road. The spear point sticking out of his back cut a deep gash into Logan's scalp as he fell on top of him. Logan seized hold of the axeman's matted hair with both hands, pulled his head back, and mashed his face into a rock. He lurched to his feet, head spinning, wiping blood out of his eyes, just in time to see an arrow zip out of the trees and thud into a trunk a stride or two away. Logan hurtled at the archer. He saw him now, a boy no more than 14, reaching for another arrow. Logan pulled out his knife. The boy was knocking the arrow to his bow, but his eyes were wide with panic. He fumbled the string and drove the arrow through his hand, looking greatly surprised. Logan was on him. The boy swung the bow at him, but he ducked below and jumped forward, driving the knife up with both hands. The blade caught the boy under the chin, lifted him into the air, then snapped off into his neck. He dropped on top of Logan, the jagged shard of the knife cutting a long gash in his arm. Blood splattered everywhere, from the cut on Logan's head, from the cut on Logan's arm, from the gaping wound in the boy's throat. He shoved the corpse away, staggered against a tree, and gasped for breath. His heart was pounding, the blood roaring in his ears, his stomach turning over. "I am still alive," he whispered. "I am still alive." The cuts on his head and arm were starting to throb. 2 more scars. It could have been a lot worse. He scraped the blood from his eyes and limped back to the road. So while I was reading that, you could feel the energy. You could feel the pace of it. It was fast. It was quick. I love how chaotic it is and frantic and brutal. You can feel every punch. You can feel every blow. You can see the axe barely missing him and sticking into the ground. You can see the arrow shooting past him and whizzing away. I mean, you can feel every moment, but it's all so clear and it's all so vivid. And you feel the stakes. You're worried for him. You don't know if he's going to make it out alive. He even gets cut multiple times while fighting. He trips over a rock. He rolls his ankle. And finally, the exhaustion of it all. He rolls over. He's out of breath, but he made it out alive. It's all there. It's all vivid. It's all clear. It's perfect. So as you can see, both of those writers are incredible at writing energized and descriptive action scenes. They both know how to bring their readers to the edge of their seats, but in different ways, but with the same principles. Finally, because I like to practice what I preach, I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my own book. It's a bit of a spoiler, so if you want to go in completely blind when you read it, skip to the next timestamp in this video. Now, let's take a look at my book, The Gidoriansaga, The Golden Academy, Chapter 8, The First Mission. We're going to be reading from page 111 if you want to follow along. And for some context, my main character, Caden Collins, just got sent deep underground after being hit with a shockwave from his enemy. When my vision finally cleared, I found myself lying in the dark, gasping for air. A faint light glowed in the far distance above me, and I tried to extend my arm to reach for it, but I was completely pinned by the rocks and dirt around me. My suit was torn to pieces, and I could tell I was badly injured. Blood trickled from the top of my head and ran down the front of my face. My ribs felt broken, and every breath hurt. In the distance, I heard a faint cry for help. "Caden!" I could barely make it out, but I knew it was Arissa's voice. Then I heard her screaming, which echoed deep into the underground tomb where I found myself. She was about to die, and it was all my fault. I should have fought harder, used better strategy, and not let that dickhead get the best of me, but I was stupid and charged him head on. Her screams got louder and louder until I lost all control. I was filled with rage, and an immense feeling of unlimited energy rushed over me. I yelled as the entire tunnel lit up bright red. I could feel myself healing and getting stronger. My cracked ribs began reforming, and the cut on my head sealed itself. I yelled louder as I brought my arms up from my side, breaking free from the dirt and rock. I began scrambling, clawing my way through the tunnel before energy shot out of my feet like a rocket. I flew toward the light, breaking through the rock around me until I exploded out of the earth in a flash of red and floated 10 feet above the street. I saw Arissa below me, screaming in pain as the rogue smiled and laughed while torturing her with his shockwaves. She held her ears in pain, tears streaking down her face. "Get away from her, now!" I yelled as something else took full control of me. The shockwave rogue turned toward me and laughed. "Look who decided to come back to the land of the..." I cut off his words by releasing a beam of energy from my hands. He shot out his own, and the two met in the middle of the street, sending a sonic boom out to the surrounding buildings, damaging them and shattering more windows. He tried to fight off the energy by sending out more of his, but it was of no use as I was too powerful for him. I closed in, my beams overpowering his more and more until I was finally face to face with him, staring directly into his terrified eyes. I grabbed his forearms and began to squeeze, feeling his weak and brittle bones crunching and cracking under my grip. He screamed in pain as I squeezed even harder, watching his forearms splinter and shatter, bones tearing through fragile skin, spraying blood all over both of us. And of course, you gotta read it to find out what happens next. So hopefully you could really feel the energy of that scene, and the description was vivid enough so that it brought you in, you could see everything very clearly. And finally, let's talk about what you can do to practice writing action scenes. When I was first learning to write action, I would sit down and watch an action scene from one of my favorite movies, TV shows, or video games. games. For me, one that I love to describe and watch was the Baldur vs. Kratos fight at the beginning of the God of War video game. What I would do is I would watch some of it, pause the video, and then attempt to describe what I was seeing. Try and do that over and over again as many times as you can until you feel like you've matched the energy of the scene that you felt while watching it. Next, another thing that really helped me was looking up fighting terms. Whether it's sword fighting or martial arts terms, having more words in my vocabulary allowed me to become more descriptive while writing action scenes. Finally, I'll leave you with one last tip, and unfortunately there is no way around this. You have to write and read more action. Find books that are action heavy and try and replicate what they do. And what I found helped me the most while writing action scenes was turning on energized and intense battle music that matched what I was writing. I'm a big believer in how I think music can help you write certain emotional or action-packed scenes. And to me, that helped tremendously. It really put me in the moment and made me feel like I could imagine those scenes that much better, or that I was really there while listening to that music. I really hope this video helps you write descriptive and energized action scenes in your own books. And of course, if you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate if you dropped a like, and if you want to see more like it, please subscribe. And if you have any thoughts about what we talked about today, or you would like to share some of your favorite action scenes from movies, books, or video games with me, please drop them down in the comments below and I'll be sure to check them out. As always, happy reading and writing, and I'll see you guys next time.